Hey guys, Alyssa for Piratina here. You know what you're thinking, where am I? I'm holding my phone, and if it works, let me know. By the way, thank you so much for 10 panic for 10 subscribers. You guys are awesome, and I got 40 views about it, and keep it a good work. And okay, go in there, and we're going to read Bedtime Ghost Stories. Apologize for the outfit. Jesus Christ, sorry. I don't know everybody's. Sorry about that. I have no idea why it does that. Because the outfit is so annoying. Oh, wait. Okay, this one says, don't read these alone. Well, I was thinking maybe it says don't read it at 3 a.m. or something like that. I have no idea. Don't read these alone. These are the most creepiest and spooky ghost stories from parts of the world, and more are nearly tingling, scary, and full of horror. Stories are selected very carefully to make sure the reader gets shivers down the spine. Good resource for late night telling.
If I can teach myself a new language while juggling fire, so can you. Well,
this one is way better than that. Okay, in the night. Bedtime is supposed to be a happy event for a tired child. For me, it was terrifying. While some children might complain about being put to bed before they have finished watching a film or play their favorite video game when I was a child, nighttime was something to truly fear. Somewhere in the back of my mind, it still is. As someone who is still trained in this science, I cannot prove that what happened to me was objectively real, but I can swear that what I experienced was genuine horror. A fear which in my life I'm glad to say has never been equaled. I will relate it to you all now. As best I can, most of it what you will, but I'm be glad to just get it off my chest. I can't remember exactly when it started, but my preparation towards falling asleep seems to be compromised with my own being moved into a room my own. I was 8 years old at the time. Until then, I had shared a room, quite happily, with my older brother, as is perfectly unstateable for a boy 5 years my senior. My brother eventually wished for a room of his own, and as a result, I was given the room at the back of the house. It was a small, narrow, yet orderly, elongated room, long enough for a bed and a couple of chests of drawers, but not much else. I couldn't really complain because even at that age, I stood. Sorry, guys, just moving on towards my bed. I understood that we did not have a large house, and I had no real cause to be disappointed, as my family was both loving and caring. It was a happy childhood. During the day, a solitary window looked back out onto our back garden, nothing out of the ordinary. But even during the day, the light which crept into that room seemed almost insistent. As my brother was given a new bed, I was given the bunk beds which we used to share. While I was upset about sleeping on my own, I was excited at the thought of being able to sleep in the top bunk, which seemed far more adventurous to me. From the very first night, I remember a strange feeling of unease creepy sleep slowly from the back of my mind. I lay on the top bunk, staring down at my action figures and cars strewn across the green-blue carpet, and imaginary battles and adventures took place between the toys on the floor. I couldn't help but feel that my eyes were slowly drawn towards the bunk, as if something was moving in the corner of my eye, something which did not wish to be seen. The bunk was empty and could have been made with a dark blue blanket tucked in neatly, partially covering two rather bland white pillows. I didn't think of it at the time. I was a child, and the noises slipping under my door from my parents' television bathed me in a warm scene of safety and well-being. I fell asleep. When you awaken from a deep sleep to something moving or stirring, it cannot take a few moments for you to truly understand what is happening. The fog of sleep hangs over your eyes and ears, even when liquids. Something was moving, and there was no doubt about that. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. Everything was black, almost pitch black. Everything was dark, almost pitch black, but there was enough light creeping in from outside to outline that narrowly suffocating room. Two thoughts appeared in my mind almost simultaneously. The first was that my parents were in bed because the rest of the house lay both in darkness and silence. The second thought turned to the noise, a noise which had obviously woken me. As the last cobwebs of sleep withered from my mind, the noise took on a more familiar form. Sometimes the simplest of sounds can be the most unnerving: a cold wind whistling through a tree outside, a neighbor's footsteps uncomfortably close, or in this case, the simple sound of bed sheets rustling in the dark. That was it. Bed sheets rustling in the dark, as if some disturbed sleeper was attempting to get all too comfortable in the bottom bunk. I lay there in disbelief, thinking that noise was either my imagination, or perhaps just my pet cat finding somewhere comfortable to spend the night. It was then that I noticed my door, shut as it had been as if I had fallen asleep. Perhaps my mom had checked me. Perhaps my mom had checked me on. Perhaps my mom had checked in on me, and the cat had sneaked into my room then. Yes, it must have been it. I turned to face the wall, closing my eyes in the vain hope that I could fall back to sleep. As I moved, the whistling noise from underneath me ceased. I thought that I must have disturbed my cat, but quickly I realized that the visitor in the bottom bunk was much less mundane than my pet trying to sleep, and much more sinister. As if alert to and discolored by my presence, the disturbed sleeper began to toss and turn violently, like a child having a tantrum in their bed. I could hear the sheets twist and turn with increasing ferocity. Sorry about that. Fear then gripped, not like the subtle sense of unease I had experienced earlier, but now potent and terrifying. My heart raced as my eyes panicked, scanning the almost impenetrable darkness. A loud cry. As most young boys do, I instantly shouted at my mother. I could hear something stir on the other side of the house, but as I began to breathe a sigh to relieve that my parents were coming to save me, the bunk bed suddenly started to shake violently, as if gripped by an earthquake, scraping against the wall. I could hear the sheets below me thrashing around as if tormented by malice. I did not jump down to safety as I feared the thing in the bottom bunk would reach out and grab me, pulling me into the darkness, so I stayed there, white knuckles clutching on my own blanket, like a sworn of protection. The weight seems like an eternity. The door finally and thankfully burst open, and I lay bathed in light, while the bomb bunk, the resting place of my unwanted visitor, lay empty and peaceful. I cried and my mother consoled me. Tears of fear, followed by its relief, streamed down my face. Yet, though all of the horror and relief, I did not tell her why I was so upset. I could not explain it, but it was as though whatever had been in that bunk would return if I even had so much as spoke of it, or uttered a single syllable of existence. Whether that was the truth, I did not know, but as a child, I felt as if that unseen menace remained close, listening. My mother lay in the bomb bunk, promising to stay there until morning. Eventually, my anxiety, diminished tiredness, pushed me back toward sleep, but I remained restless, waking several times momentarily to the sound of rustling bed sheets. I remember the next day wanting to go anywhere, be anywhere, but in that narrow, suffocating room. It was a Saturday, and I played outside quite happily with my friends. Although our house was not large, we were lucky to have a long, slopey garden in the back. We played there often, as much of it overgrown as we could hide in the bushes. Climb in the huge sycamore tree which towered above all else, and easily imagine ourselves in the throes of a grand adventure in some unexplored island. As fun as it all was, unwittingly my eye would turn to that small window, ordinary light and innocuous, but for me, that the end boundary was a looking glass into a strange cold pocket of dread. Outside the lynch. Wait. Oh, yes. Do know that, sorry. Outside the leash green surroundings of our garden, filled with the smiling faces of my friends, could not extinguish the creepy feeling clawing its way up my spine, each hair standing on end. The feeling of something in that room, watching me play, waiting for the night when I will be alone, angrily filled with hate. It may sound strange to you, but by the time my parents ushered me back into the room that room for the night, I said nothing. I didn't protest. I didn't even make an excuse as to why I couldn't sleep there. I simply and solemnly walked into that room, climbed the few steps into the top bunk, and then waited. As an adult, I would be telling everyone about my experience, but even at that age, I felt almost silly to be talking about something which I really had no evidence for. I would be lying. However, if I said this was my primary reason, I still felt that this thing would be arranged if I so much as spoke of it. It's funny how certain words can remain hidden from your mind. No matter how blatant or obvious they are, one word came to me that second night, laying there in the darkness alone, frightened, aware of a wild change in the atmosphere, a thickening of the air as if something had displaced it. Okay, it kind of reminds me of Five Nights at Freddy's. As I heard the first casual twist of the bed sheets below, the second anxious increase of my heartbeat at the realization that something was once again in the bomb bunk. That word, a word which had been sent into Excel, floated up through my consciousness, breaking free of all repression, gasping for air, screaming, itchy, and carving itself into my mind. Ghost. As this thought came to me, I noticed that my unwelcome visitor had increased moving. The bed sheets lay calm and dormant, but they had been replaced by something far more hideous. A slow, rhythmic rhapsody breathed beneath and escaped from the thing below, I could imagine his chest rising and falling from with each sordid, whizzing and gulp of breath. I shuddered and hoped beyond all hope that he would leave without coincidence. The house lay as it had the previous night in a thick blanket of darkness. Silence prevailed, all but for the pervert breath of my, as yet, unseen bunkmate. I lay there terrified. I just wanted this thing to go to leave me alone. What does it want? Then, something unmistakably chilling transpired. It moved. It moved in a way different from before. When it threw itself around in the bomb bunk, it seemed unrestrained. Without purpose, almost animalistic. This movement, however, was driven by awareness, with purpose, with a goal in mind, for that thing lying there in the darkness, that thing which seemed an intent on terror. A young boy calmly and much tenderly sat up. Its labored breath had become louder, as now only a mattress and a few films wooden slats separate my body from the unearthly breath below. I lay there, my eyes filled with tears, a fear which mere words cannot relate to you or anyone caused through my veins. I would not have believed that this fear could have been heightened, but I was so wrong. I imagined what this thing would look like, sitting there listening from below my mattress, hoping to catch the slightest hint that I was awake. My imagination then turned to an unnerving reality. It began to touch the wooden slats which my mattress sat on. It seemed to caress them carefully, running one match and to be fingers and hands across the surface of the wood. Then, with great force, it pounded angrily between two slats into the mattress. Even though the padding, it felt as though someone had viciously stuck their fingers into my side. I let out an almighty cry, and wheezing and shaking and moving thing in the bunk below replied in kind, most by vibrating the bunk as it done that night before. Small flakes of paint pounded onto my blanket from the wall as the frame on the bed scrambled along it, backwards and forwards. Once again I was bathed in light, and there stood my mother, loving and caring as she always was, with a comforting hug and calming words, which eventually stumbled my Hyesta. Of course she asked what was wrong, but I could not say. I dared not say, simply said one word, over and over and over again. Nightmare. This pattern of events continued for weeks, if not months. Night after night I would waken to the sound of rustling sheets. Each time I would scream so as to not provide this abomination with time to prod and feel for me. With each cry the bed would shake violently, stopping with the arrival of my mother, who would spend the rest of the night in the bomb bunk, seemingly aware of the sinister force, torturing her son nightly. Along the way, I imagined the virgin illness a few times and come up with other less than truthful reasons for sleeping in my parents' bed, but more often than not I would be alone for the first few hours of each night in that place. The room where the lights from outside did not sit right. Alone with that thing. How long is this going? I don't know. With time you can become desensitized to almost anything, no matter how horrific. I had come to realize that, for whatever reason, this thing could not harm me when my mother was present. I am sure the same would have been said for my father, but as lovely as he was, waking him from sleep was almost impossible. After a few months, I had grown accustomed to my nightly visitor. I did not mistake this for some unearthly friendship. I detesting the thing, I still feared it greatly, as I could almost sense its desires and its personality, if you could call that. One filled with it, perverted and twisted hatred, yet longing for me, of perhaps all things. My greatest fears were realized in the winter. The days grew short, and the longer nights merely provide this wretch with more opportunities. It was difficult my time for my family. My grandmother was a wonderful, kind, and gentle woman, had deserved greatly since the death of my grandfather. My mother was trying her best to keep her in the community as long as possible. However, dementia is a cruel and degenerative illness, robbing a person of their memories one day at a time. So she recognized none of us, and it became clear that she would need to be moved from her house to a nursing home. Before she could move, my grandmother had a partly difficult few nights, and my mother decided that she would stay with her. As much as I loved my grandmother, and felt nothing but anguish at her illness, to this day I feel guilty that my first thoughts were not of her, but of what my nightly visitor may do should it become aware of my mother's absence. Her presence being the one thing which I was sure was protecting me from the horror of this thing's reach. I rushed home from school that day and immediately fetched the bed sheets and mattress from the lower bunk, removed all the slats, and placed on old decks a chest of drawers and chairs which we kept in a cupboard where the bottom bunk used to be. I told my father I was making an office, which he found adorable, but I would be damned if I give that thing a place to sleep for one more night. As darkness approached, I lay there knowing my mother was not in the house. I did not know what to do. My only impulse was to sneak into her jewelry box. I took a small family crucifix, which I had seen there before. While my family were not very religious, at that age, I still believed in God and hoped that somehow this would protect me. Although fearful and anxious, while gripping the crucifix under my pillow tightly in one hand, sleep eventually came, and as I drifted off to dream, I hoped that I would awaken in the morning without incidents. Unfortunately, that night was the most terrifying of all. I woke gradually. The room was once again dark. As my eyes adjusted, could greatly make out the window and the door and the walls, and some toys on a shelf, and even to this day I shudder to think of it, for there was no noise, no whistling sheets, no movement at all. The room felt lifeless yet not empty. The nightly visitor, the unwelcome, whistling, hate-filled thing, which had terrified me night after night, was not in the bottom bunk. It was in my bed. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. An utter terror had shaken the very sound from my voice. I lay motionless. If I could not scream, I did not want to let him know I was awake. I had not yet seen. I could only feel it. Okay, I'm getting terrified with this. Oh, God. It was obscured under my blanket. I could see its outline, and I could feel its presence, but I dare not look. The weight of it pressed down on top of me, a session I will never forget. When I say that hours passed, I did not exaggerate. Lay motionless in the darkness. I was every bit of scared and frightening young boy. If it had been during the summer month, it would have been light by then. But the grasp of winter is long and unmodulating, and I knew it would be hours before sunrise, the sunlight which I yearned for. For I was a timid child by nature, but I reached a breaking point, a moment where I could wait no more, where I could survive under this immediately deviant abomination no longer. Fear can sometimes wear you out, make you threadbare, a shell of nerves, leaving only the slightest trace of you behind. I had to get out of that bed. Then I remembered the crucifix. My hand was still laid underneath my pillow, but it was empty. I slowly moved my wrist around to find it, minimizing as best I could the sound and vibration caused, but it could not be found. I had either knocked it off at the top bunk, or it had. I could not even bear to think of it being taken from my hand. Without the crucifix, I lost any sense of hope. Even at such a young age, you can be acutely aware of what death is, and intensely frightened of it. I knew I was going to die in that bed if I lay there, dormant, passive, doing nothing. I had to leave that room behind, but how? Should I leave from the bed and hope that I will make it to the door? What if it is faster than me? Or could I slowly slip out of the top bunk, hoping to not disturb my uncanny bedfellow, realizing that it had not stirred? For a move, trying to find the crucifix, I began to have the strangest of thoughts. What if it was asleep? It hadn't so much as breathed since I had woken up. Perhaps it was resting, believing that it had finally got me. Then I was finally in its grasp. Or perhaps it was toying with me. After all, it had been doing just that countless nights, and now with me under it, pinned against my mattress, with no mother to protect me, maybe it was holding off, savoring its victory until the last possible moment, like a wild animal savoring its prey. I tried to breathe as shallowing as possible, mustering every ounce of courage I could. I reached over slowly with my right hand and began to peel the blanket off of me. When I found under those covers, almost stopped my heart. I did not see it, but as I moved my hand, my hand moved the blanket, it pushed against something smooth and cold, something which felt unmistakably like a giant hand. I held my breath in terror, as I sure it must now have known that I was awake. Nothing. It did not stir. It felt dead. Almost after a few moments, I placed my hand carefully further down the blanket and felt a thin, poorly formed forearm. My cautious and almost twist sense of curiosity grew as I moved down further to a disproportionately larger disc-shaped muscles. The arm was outstretched, laying across my chest, with the hand resting on my left shoulder as if it had grabbed me in my sleep. I realized that I would have to move this cadaverous appendage, even even so much as hoped to escape its grasp. For some reason, the feeling of torn rage clothing on the shoulder of this nighttime invader stopped me in my tracks. Fear again swelled in my stomach and in my chest as I uncoiled my hand in disgust as the touch strangled only oily hair. I could not bring myself to touch his face, although I wonder to this very day what it would have felt like. Dear God, it moved. Its subtle but its grips on my shoulder and across my body strengthened. No tears came, but God, how I wanted to cry as his hands and arms slowly coiled around me, my right leg brushing cool along the cool wall, reached the bed lay against. Of all that happened to me, this was the strangest. I realized that this clenching, running thing, which drew great delight from violating a young boy's bed, was not entirely on top of me. It was sticking out from the wall, like a spider streaking from its lair. Suddenly its grip moved from a slow tightening to a sudden squeeze. It pulled and clawed out my clothes as if frightened that the opportunity would soon pass. I fought against it, but its mated arm was too strong for me. Its head rose up, whistling and contorting under the blanket. I now realized where it was taking me, into the wall. I fought for all my dear life. I cried and suddenly my voice returned to me, yelling, screaming, but no one came. Then I realized it was so anger to suddenly strike. Why this thing had to have me now? Through my window, that window which seemed to represent too much light from outside, streaked hope, the first rays of sunshine. I struggled further, knowing that if I could just hold on, it will be gone soon. It will soon be gone. As I fought for my life, the earthling parasite shifted, slowly pulling itself up my chest. Its head now poking out from under the blanket, wheezing, coughing, rasping. I did not remember its features. I simply remember its breath against my face, full and as cold as ice. As the sun broke over the horizon, that dark place, that suffocating room, was contemplated, was washed, bathed in sunlight. I passed out as if scrolling fingers circling my neck, squeezing the very life from me. I awoke to my father offering to make me some breakfast. It was a wonderful sight indeed. I had survived the most horrible experience of my life until then, and now I moved the bed away from the wall, leaving behind the furniture. I had believed it would stop that thing from taking the bed. Little did I think that it would try to take mine and me. Weeks passed without incidents, yet one cold, frostbitten night, I awoke to the sound of the furniture where the bunk bed used to be vibrating violently. In a moment it passed. I lay there, sure I could hear a distant wheezing coming from deep within the wall, finally fading into the distance. Whoa. I have never told anyone this story before. To this day, I still break out in the cold sweat at the sound of bed sheets whistling in the night, or a wheeze brought on by a common cold, and I certainly never sleep with my bed against the wall. Call it superstition, if you will, but as I said, I cannot discount consciential explanation such as sleep paralysis, hallucination, or that's of an overactive imagination. But what I say is this. The following year, I was given a large room on the other side of the house, and my parents took that strange, suffocating, elongated place as their bedroom. They said they didn't need a large room, just one big enough for a bed and a few things. They lasted 10 days. We moved on the 11th. Okay, that was freaky. Oh boy. Go away, go away. Sorry about that. Okay, that was kind of creepy, I was gonna say, so. I think I'm gonna leave it here. Sorry. Thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, and comment down below about did you find it terrifying? It says 6 chapters. How come I read one? Wait, hold on. Was there more? I think I should continue this like next time. So thank you so much for watching. Yeah, I always say that. Thank you so much for watching. Thumbs up and like comment down below about Divine and Terrifying in this first chapter. Let me know. And press the subscribe button, hit the bell notification on if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.